Online courses are introduced by Concordia University, and the senior non-credit students need to adapt to this new format. My name is Eddie. I'm a seniors volunteer and I have just completed my first online course. I should like to share my experience that I hope you'll find helpful. I should like to cover this in 4 parts. We'll begin by looking at the applications involved, Moodle and Zoom, and then we'll see how to download and install Zoom. Thirdly, we'll see how to make contact with your course and your instructor. And finally, we'll end by a demonstration of Zoom. Let's start with the applications. You may prefer the trendy abbreviation apps. These are the well-established Moodle and the recent innovation Zoom. So with Moodle, we're familiar first of all with notes, slides and references and so on. And secondly, although we're not required to complete the parts that are used to evaluate grades, such as quizzes, assignments and exams, it's useful to know the course requirements for evaluation. Next, podcasts. These are an attractive feature, being slideshows with a voice overlay, and these are saved as a movie file. The first 3 parts of this presentation are a podcast. And finally here, might mention course reserves that are in electronic format from our library. I was fortunate in my online course to download the course textbook, both from the publisher and the library, but I'm not sure how common this will be. Turning to Zoom, which is the new boy on the block. First of all, it has been developed outside of Concordia and other educational institutions also, and it's mostly for business applications. So in the Zoom terminology of leader and participants, these become for us teacher and students. Secondly, there's several grades of Zoom that are called with needs, ranging from the one we can afford, it's free, and isn't that an attractive price, to the more complex. Each has its own limits, such as time limit and, in our case, maximum class size. When a student clicks to join, they enter a waiting room. The instructor then admits all the students from the waiting room at the start of the class. Good idea not to be late, because it will put the instructor off from his more important things which he has in mind for the class. Finally here, the instructor Zoom has got more facilities than the students. When it comes to downloading and installing Zoom, the advice, you can wait until your first class to download Zoom, is often given, but this download operation takes your focus from your starting of your first class. So by typing zoom.us/download, that you'll see here into your browser address bar, I should say, the https:// will be added by your browser. The download can be done earlier, giving time for you to check your audio and video before your first class. Now, this isn't a first-time user screen. What I had to do, I had to uninstall Zoom and ask my brother to set up a Zoom meeting and invite me to it, which is what you see on this screen here. At the bottom right, you notice there's a launch meeting, or otherwise download and run Zoom. As I was just saying a moment ago, that if you download and run Zoom just before your first class, not a very good idea. That's my view. So when you do download Zoom, however you do it, you'll see we are downloading Zoom. The message is given to, and you'll notice that there is a blue arrow pointing downwards, and it points down to the file which is downloaded. The file is an execute file. Note the exe file type, and it has to be run to install Zoom. This can be done either by double-clicking the file name or by clicking the small up arrow beside the file name and selecting Run. There's two screens here. The top one is installing Zoom. You'll see that the progress bar moves from the left to the right, showing 24% done, and when that's finished you'll meet the second screen underneath, the enter your name screen, and notice on the bottom it says join the meeting. There's a button join the meeting there. And there's another two screens. The top one is a wait screen. There's a circulating, rotating, I should say, wait image, and tells you something is happening. And underneath, when you see the second screen, it means you're in the waiting room. And so when you're in the waiting room, you click on join with computer audio, and then we get to our next item, which is to contact your course. This is a little bit more complicated. This requires an invitation from your instructor. Now this is a Concordia class Zoom invitation, and this is sent to each student, being one global invitation for all the weekdays when the course meets. In this example, it came to me, the course met on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and another similar email to this one was sent for all the Thursdays. But taking this one, for example, the 7 classes are listed at the top left of the screen, starting with May the 5th, 2020, 11:45. It's interesting to see the contact information for the various countries of the world at the bottom right. But what is most important on this screen is the click to join. Notice the blue arrow surrounded by a red rectangle. certainly trying to make that noticeable, aren't I? So clicking this link will enter the student into the waiting room, and the instructor then will admit all the students at the start of the class. It's necessary to find the click here to join link in your email. And if your email is like mine, gets a bit messy, it might be a little difficult to find. So what I did, and you might want to consider doing this, I copy pasted those links, the Tuesday link as well as the Thursday link, into a separate Word document, the like of which you see on this screen, and saving this document onto the desktop. Much easier to go and get these clicked when it comes to entering your class. Now, demonstrating Zoom coming up shortly. This is the fun part. But before we go there, this is not course related what I'm showing you here, but this is the Zoom homepage. And when my brother invited me to this meeting I mentioned a few months ago, what he did, he would have clicked the orange button you'll see at the top left of the Zoom homepage, and then created this new meeting and invited me to it. Now, before we go into this demonstration, I might say I've had a difficulty so far, which I haven't succeeded with, in recording the Zoom screen with its taskbar on the bottom. And I want to show you this in some detail because I'd like to show you how these go. There's on the bottom left of the taskbar a mute button, looks like a microphone. Beside it there is a video camera, it says stop video underneath. More about these when we come to it in a few minutes. And there's a chat button, and the end icon pretty well speaks for itself, doesn't it? So then I think we're just about ready, as if you're in the waiting room, and you're then ready to start the class, and you'll shortly see the face of your instructor coming up shortly. And so here we are again, and this time you're seeing, instead of your instructor, you're seeing me. Forgive me for impersonating your instructor, but you don't have one, I guess. So their image would appear on most of the screen that you see, and at the top right you'll see a small image of yours, and together with probably the teaching assistant, TA, as well. And when the lecture starts, most of the screen will be occupied by what you normally would see in a classroom, projection of the PowerPoints, documents and so on that you're familiar with seeing in a classroom. And well, that's all. I think nothing needs to be said more than that, but I would like to cover one or two pros and cons of online courses, and some of them fairly obvious, like we save a lot of travelling time going into and back home from Concordia, and not only the travelling time but also the cost of travelling. And I still have, I guess somewhere, I've got an Opus card that is probably disintegrating through lack of use. However, now there's also the comforts of home, isn't there? Yeah, seats are much more comfortable in our places at home than we find in the Concordia classrooms, that's sure. And if you've got a laptop computer, for example, you could take it in to sit in your favourite armchair. Just make sure you don't doze off, though, if it's so comfortable. And also, yes, there's we can get our own favourite beverage, can't we? Let's not forget that. Talking about laptop computers, if you've got a laptop computer, you might want to go see friends and family in, say, Toronto, Quebec City. I spent a week in the Laurentians, and I was pleased to take my laptop there and had a couple of my classes there. So nice that I didn't have to drive down the autoroute. So there's a number of pluses and minuses. Mind you, we all would prefer our regular classrooms, that's sure, because the social interaction that we get in a classroom can't be beaten, I suppose, and our visits from to the on-site, on-campus cafeterias, for example. However, there's a few of the pros and cons. Now, I must introduce you to the geography of the Zoom screen. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, you won't be able to see the Zoom taskbar at the bottom of the screen. I can see it, but I'm afraid you can't. You'll have to bear with me on this, have faith. And so, first of all, there's the mute microphone. And if I click on the mute microphone, you'll and then you can hear me once again. Now, this is important in the classroom because the instructor doesn't want extraneous noise to interrupt the class, like if, for example, a barking dog, or if you've got somebody somewhere around the house, you've got a grandchild screaming its head off. That wouldn't be a great thing to hear in a class. It would interrupt the progress of that class. Okay, so then you probably, as I say, will be asked by the instructor to mute your microphone. Now, when it comes to the next icon, muting if I click on what looks like a movie camera, surprise, surprise, you'll find my face replaced by the first letter of my given name. Click it again, and here I am back again. Now, we shouldn't be shy to conceal our pictures, I think, as senior students. You know, whether or not we've got grey hair, no hair, or a few skin wrinkles, I think these ought to be displayed with pride, like medals of honour. After all, we've worked hard to obtain these characteristics, haven't we? But in the class, I'll mention this in a minute, one of the features of Zoom is that you're going to have breakout sessions. Breakout sessions, usually you have 3 or 4 students getting together and discussing with each other a subject suggested by the instructor. Lasts maybe 8 to 10 minutes or so, something like that. And it begins to be quite difficult to discuss with somebody who's just displaying a letter instead of a picture. It's one of the forms of communication. It's so important that we see people's eyes. And anyway, I digress, and enough said. Now, if we move alongside, at least if I move alongside the taskbar at the bottom, I'd like to introduce you to a method of asking questions. It's the chat icon. the chat icon brings up a pop-up window, which I think you will see. I'm going to move it to one side so that, well, I could put it over my face anyway, but if you've got a question to ask, you will type it in down here somewhere. I'm tapping the keyboard, and then I click on the Enter key. That question could be answered by the TA, or the TA might keep it from being answered by the instructor. And if the instructor answers the question, you come back to you and say, well, how is that? Is that clear now? And you would unmute your microphone and say, oh yes, thank you. I hope you would anyway. And the class would go on from there. So it's a nice feature, this chat. And it means that you can see at the chat window during the class and see all the questions that other guides are asking at the same during the class. And so that's a nice feature. I think then I'm going back to the taskbar at the bottom. I think we can forget about the others, except that the recording button may not be permitted by the instructor. It's up to him or her to let you record or otherwise. And that gets us to the end button on the rightmost part of the taskbar, which is useful if you want to, say, in a regular classroom, if you have an appointment, say, it means you have to leave the class, you could press the end button and just you leave the class. The class will still continue going, even though you might have left it. Okay, so I think we've covered most of the Zoom screen. And is there anything else I need to add to this? I don't think so. I think that should be just about right. And if you feel that you've got some questions that you'd like to put, by all means, won't you send us an email to seniors@concordia.ca. And so I hope that you'll like your online courses as much as I have. And this is a bit of a milestone for me because this is my 60th course I've taken in my 15 years as a senior student. And so it's been a good time for me to learn how to an alternative form of learning. And I hope you'll enjoy the experience too. So remember to drop us an email if you wish. And you might like, if you want us to get back to you via Zoom contact, you might suggest a suitable day and time. So, for example, Thursdays and Fridays at 3, and somebody will get back to either I or one of my colleagues, and we'll fix up a Zoom discussion. So I think that's all, and I wish you happy onlining, and take very good care, and bye-bye now.